Hello and welcome to ETBFSI.com and ETCFO.com by the Economic Times. My name is Amol Dete, and this is our special Union Budget 2026 episode. I must tell you that this is the most influential show on budget expectations, running for almost 6 years. We bring top leaders to share their views because we believe the government listens. Join us live for this show every Wednesday this month, which is January. You can watch this episode live on ETBFSI, ETCFO.com, along with YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook channels as well. Share your questions when the show is live. Let's begin. Let me introduce my speakers first to all of you. So, friends, the speaker for this particular show that I have with me is Mr. Neeraj Jain, the Group CFO of Quest Corp Limited. Neeraj ji, glad to have you. My next speaker is Ms. Neha Oberoi, CFO of Suzuki Motorcycle India Private Limited. Neha ji, glad to have you.
Good afternoon. I'm good. Thank you.
My next speaker is Mr. Abani Jha, Chairman and CFO Council, Assocham. Abani ji, glad to have you. My next speaker is Mr. Rangachari Sridharan, who is the former chairman of NAFRA, which is NFRA. Sridharan ji, glad to have you. And my another speaker, who is the president of none other than and chartered accountants body, which is ICI, CA Charanjit Singh Nanda. Nanda ji, good to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, and let's begin with the budget. Halwa is yet to be made at the finance ministry, but I'm pretty sure that the finance ministry has already started receiving loads of expectations from the industry as such. So let me quickly ask one common question to all of you, which could be as brief as possible from your end. And Snehaji, I will begin with you. The first question is, what is the quick wish list from the budget 2026?
Oh, wish list can be as long as possible. So definitely, first of all, I must say that Indian auto industry is doing great well, and especially after the changes of the GST, buying of vehicle have become more affordable, and more people, especially in rural areas, are choosing to buy two-wheeler and other things. So, if we talk about the expectation, then there are various trade and export challenges and export and supply chains resiliences which need to be taken care of because there are countries who are increasing the tax on CBUs. There is China who is holding the precious material, so the cost is impacting all the manufacturing industries a lot. So there are lots of things which need to be which can be done for creating the supply chain resilience, these kind of things. And with this, definitely. Government is already taking various steps for the growth of MSME. In MSME, I must say that it is giving a biggest share of the GDP. So, for the growth of MSME, the support which can be done because they are the backbone of the economy. So, for making the finance easy, for infrastructure, for knowledge, whatever can be done, it should be. It is something which needs to be done for MSME. And if I come back to again to localization and supply chain, definitely that is something budget should incentivize the investment in indigenous manufacturing, supplier development, and critical mineral exploration. Because all these things will strengthen the local supply chain and will reduce our vulnerability on global disruption and support manufacturing-led growth. So these are the things which is related to the manufacturing. Beside this, the other thing which I feel the important point is technology and innovation. Means investment in the digital infrastructure, AI and automation will also modernize the manufacturing sector. So these are the things which I feel should be there. Of course, beside this, there are taxation part which we will discuss.
No, certainly, and we have the tax expert here specifically from the ICI also to talk about the ICI. But about the taxation. But the readers, friends, and the speakers, I think in the beginning, I just want to highlight three very basic things. If you look at the positives, India is the fastest growing economy. We have the lowest interest rates, lowest inflation, and the highest growth, which is absolutely positive. But on the negative side, lack of manufacturing, and in fact, Snehaji also added a couple of points on that we need to scale up that. But there is one interesting positive which just came this month itself or this week itself, is that Apple has manufactured the iPhones worth $50 billion from India this month itself. Second point, I guess, is the lack of jobs, and third is the economy meltdown. I think these are the two, three negative points. So let's focus on what exactly the finance minister should do. So let me come back to you. Let me come to you, Mr. Nanda. First, quickly, your wish list on the budget, and more importantly, if I ask from your role, what is that single non-negotiable for the government if the government genuinely wants to make India easier for India?
Thank you, Mr. Dethe. Very rightly and aptly put the question. We are very keen that we have to expand the scope of dispute resolution scheme under Section 379 of the Income Tax Act 2025. At the moment, only those SSCs which have the tax demand of 10 lakh rupees and total income of 50 lakh rupees can be taking the benefit of the alternate dispute benefit, the dispute resolution scheme. We propose and request that it should be increased to 50 lakhs of tax demand and 250 lakhs of the income which is returned. Very importantly, they say that the reform should not be based on search or requisition of survey or any information received under DTAA. So we propose that things to be made more rationalized, and we have to restrict the scope of adjustments in summary assessment, which is under Section 271A. In other words, the software which is designed to detect arithmetical inaccuracies and incorrect claims should always be taken from the return and an inference be drawn to help the assessees. My wish list, I would like to say two or three. We would like to say about joint taxation. Married couples, there is a tendency to shift either income or asset in favor of the non-earning spouse. Why not join them together? The standard deduction of one is 75,000. Let it be 1,50,000. The basic exemption limit is 4 lakh rupees. Let it be 8 lakh rupees. And the surcharge which starts from 50 lakh rupees, let it be 1.5 lakh rupees. One more important thing, dual penalty. For example, if I make misrepresentation, I pay 200% tax. But if there is a false entry, I have to pay 100% of that amount. If I'm doing a foreign transaction, I have to pay 2% of the amount which is invested. So this is a hardship on the assessee. So these things have to be taken care. We have to decriminalization certain provisions. You don't pay TDS, there is a criminalization. We should decriminalize it. If an assessing officer asks some information from me, I am not able to provide that, again I'm subject to criminalization. So we want that the tax reforms should align with the objective of the government. They have come and had a new tax act which is now applicable from 1st April 2026. Going on that reformist agenda, certain things to empower the middle class and assessees to decriminalize things would be the right esteem. This is my view.
Those were astute points from Mr. Nanda, and quite realistic one. In fact, decriminalization and increasing the tax bracket for the class at large, should be a major focus area, is what I also learned from a lot of people. And let's hope the government looks at it. The way they rationalize the GST, they should also look at this part quite aggressively. Noted your points, Mr. Nanda. Mr. Jain, employment part, I think, which is the need of the hour today. While we are focusing a lot on digital India, while we are focusing a lot on making India, but the reality is, sir, jobs are not creating. Jobs are not being created. Employment level is still very low. The government came with an internship scheme, which shows that the government is interested in doing something. But what are the strong steps that the government should do right now to actually push the job growth?
Thank you, Amol. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all the panelists. I think you're absolutely right. So I will just connect the budget expectation with the employment part that you talked about. If you look at the internship scheme, it is not that the scheme had any flaws. So the internship scheme actually brought a lot of employers to a common platform. If you look at the offer versus acceptance ratio, the almost 20 industries that participated, their offers were far more than the acceptance that came in. I think the reflection of the internship scheme is that while the scheme had all the good intent, there is a level of work that we have to do in terms of upskilling the workforce and make them job ready. Because if you look at the current evolution of jobs, more and more tech related jobs, the almost 40% of those jobs require AI and niche skills to be developed. So my first expectation from the budget is that there should be a clear allocation in the budget on skilling and development for our workforce. And coming back to companies like us, as you rightly said, we can, as workforce management companies, we can really help in formal employment generation, which I think was the intent of the government in bringing the new labor code, which is still getting operationalized and stabilized. So my first expectation from this budget has to be, and which has been a long-standing demand from this industry, on the GST rate. While the government came out with GST rationalization, I think there is still a duty inversion issue in our case where we are still being charged 18% GST on our output supply, which is a high cost to our customers, especially customers who are in retail, insurance, e-commerce, etc., who are finding this cost very high, and they are in that 5% or an exempt range. So there is a huge demand from this industry that the government should reconsider our GST output tax rate and bring it down to 5%. What it will do is basically bring the cost of down for our customers, and they can then work with us, people like us, and this will help us bring more and more formal employment into the structure. I'll just give you an example. As per our data, we believe that almost 20 to 30 million workforce can come into the formal employment. And because of this duty benefit and the overall alignment of the rates, it can really help spur up the employment rate in the country. And not just that, it will also allow those workforce to get social security benefits of PF, ESI, and gratuity. So to your point, I think this is the important task that government should now fulfill as part of this budget, align the rates of the output GST rate. That will help us and our customers bring more and more employment into the formal fold.
Certainly, Neeraj, I think those were meaningful thoughts, and I personally feel that anything and everything should be done, to push the job growth. Otherwise, we'll keep having the slogans of Young India, but Young India without jobs. We are fantasizing a lot about the gig economy jobs, but we all know the reality of those jobs. So thanks for adding that, Neeraj. Let me move to Mr. Sridharan. Sridharan ji, you heard Mr. Nanda also talking about a couple of aspects on the compliance and making India Inc. favorable in terms of investments and everything. On the decriminalization part and the compliance part, to push ease of doing business, what do you think government should do now?
Thank you, Mr. Dete. I think definitely there will be two main overarching themes in the finance minister's thinking as far as this budget is concerned. The first is, as you very rightly pointed out, what could be subsumed under the heading of ease of doing business. It is not that this is something which is entirely new. This government has been doing a substantial amount of heavy lifting as far as ease of doing business is concerned. And several of the issues which, the generic issues that Mr. Nanda talked about decriminalization of various types of economic offences and so on, have already taken place. In fact, government has gone, I think, several steps forward. They have identified and repealed a whole lot of obsolete laws. As a second step, they have also now consolidated and rewritten the law relating to several financial sectors and also the criminal law. We have the example of the new Income Tax Act, which Mr. Nanda talked about. We also have the example of the consolidated securities sector laws and the consolidated labor codes. Now, the important point, and here I would amplify what Mr. Nanda said, is in the implementation. The devil always lies in the detail, and very often what is contemplated at the statute level doesn't get translated into actual practice. As they say, where the rubber hits the road, a whole lot of improvements still need to be made in terms of
Right.
drafting the subordinate legislation, the rules, the forms, ensuring web-based access, ensuring that information is available to all, which is reliable and on based on which people can take their decisions. And I must here mention one important example from the government sector itself, which probably needs to be replicated widely across the entire spectrum of government activity, and that is the latest Reserve Bank master circulars which they have now put out. They have consolidated every instruction on any subject and brought it up to date, so that you have finally a single master circular which is taken as the authentic and comprehensive statement of view on any particular subject. Unfortunately, this is yet to be accomplished across various ministries of the Government of India. You still have amendments and second amendments and third amendments to acts, and you, at the end of it, you really have to sit down and patch together the various amendments to understand what the applicable law as on date is. That is the first
Okay.
area, I think, where the government will be definitely looking at very seriously. The second area, which I think the government will be looking at, is also about ease of living. It is not enough just for the government to look at ease of doing business, but there should also be a very great focus on ease of living. And here, I think one particular example, which seems to have caused quite a bit of discomfort to ordinary citizens, is the KYC requirements across the financial sector. And very often, all of us, I'm quite sure, have experienced the rigors of the KYC scheme. In an effort to catch the odd culprit out of a million people, you really put the
Right.
rest of the million people to a whole lot of trouble. And it also looks as if these schemes, in their implementation, however good their design might be, are not
Absolutely.
being implemented properly. For example, the various scams which we see, where people have been defrauded of massive amounts, held under digital arrest, and so on. All these could not be possible if there were a proper KYC scheme in operation. So my therefore request to the government would be,
Yes.
I mean, they have to look at ease of doing business and also ease of living as far as the citizen is concerned.
Absolutely meaningful. In fact, I echo your thoughts specifically on the ease of living, and it's not just about KYC and the financial frauds, but life in general. As simple as AQI. Let's breathe a cleaner oxygen, all of us, and that would be a ease of living. Thanks for adding that. Let me move to Mr. Jha, who's also representing a industry body called ASSOCHAM. Uh, what are the recommendations from the ASSOCHAM specifically when it comes to keeping India Inc. on front and boosting ease of doing business, Mr. Jha? Mr. Jha, I think you have unmuted yourself. Can you unmute yourself? I think you are muted. Yeah.
Yeah, so my mentor, Mr. Nanda, and my all colleagues here on the call, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to speak. So I, as you know, I am the heading the CFO Council of ASSOCHAM, and I have opportunity to talk to hundreds of CFOs across India, across sector, and across problem domains, right? So it is difficult to consolidate everything together and to present to the government. But then there are a few agenda. Some of them, what Mr. Nanda have already said. Some of them, I think that Sneha is also said. Um, but then the larger part is when you go to talk to the high level of the committee or the ministers, you don't talk the nitty gritty. You talk on the policy level thing discussions. So that is the limitations industry body operates, and clearly, what we have discussed with the ministries and the relevant departments, bureaucrats, on our expectations on the budget was largely, I will give you 4 or 5 points. I won't consider tax in my discussion because Mr. Nanda has already covered it in the great detail. What I would cover here is that kind of recommendations and the kind of umbrella within which we are discussing and talking to the government is like microeconomic stability with a clear medium term fiscal consolidation roadmap without compromising growth. Uh, uh, Second is policy continuity to protect long term investment decisions amid global geopolitical and interest rate volatility. Third is inflation and cost pressure mitigation, particularly on logistics, power, and financing cost. Continued focus on public capex as crowd-in mechanism for private investment and ease of doing business, which many other speakers have said. So in India has traveled a lot from 2014. It was 142, 2019, where it was 63. Uh, but on the ground, it looks very difficult. It is like weather. When you open your mobile and see the weather, you say 10 degrees Celsius temperature would feel like 15 degrees Celsius.
Right.
So it may be seen a quantum jump and improvement in ease of doing business, but on the ground, it seems very, very difficult still. And my personal experience as a business CFO, I have seen that the various government department doesn't work in synchronization, and that's what I have communicated to the minister and the policymakers. And the last point which we have discussed, there are many other points, but the last point which I would include here is that uh, the continued focus on the capex, because when you have the schemes like Ladli Behna, Muft Yojanas, the government has very limited flexibility then available to actually do the meaningful expenses. So those are some points that growingly we have to spend more on capital and infrastructure projects to attract more investors. I've been part of Piyush Goyal delegation to various countries, and I have seen what are the expectations from the foreign investors from Indian government, and
Right.
as far as infrastructure is concerned. So it is a lot of things government is anyway aware of that, but then our duty is to tell them and remind them that, boss, this is what we need to do, and that's what our submission is and was and will be to the government while in
No,
budget
certainly.
discussion.
I think valuable thoughts there. I think indirectly you wanted to suggest that government should actually withdraw the schemes like Ladli Behna and focus more on where it is needed than just considering the election as a target. But noted your points. I think R&D minerals, like Snehaji said some time back, are the growing areas where there should be more attention. Let me come back to you, Snehaji, again. And a very important question to you. I was just looking at the data from the import that we have from China recently, and I was shocked to know that we import more than 7,000 products from China, and our import is growing significantly. If I ask you specifically for for your industry, what is it that the government should do? What kind of decisive steps that the government should do so that you will get some benefit and you will get a bigger push? Perhaps your import will come down and export will grow, or even if export doesn't grow, at least you will have India as a bigger market to cater to.
See, the thing is, for this, I just want to say that yes, our import is high, and in auto industry there are various things, rare materials and other things which are coming from, which we are importing from China, and we have seen that China has imposed some. Issues, and then the import stopped, and we faced problem. So for the mainly the critical minerals which are coming from outside, that is creating problem, and there is more lots of dependence on import. So there are various things which can be done to create the cost competitiveness, and indigenously producing those things. For example, incentivizing the domestic manufacturing of critical components, that is one of the things which can be done. Like we are already doing it for semiconductors, so the same thing can be done for batteries, and the other thing is softwares. We are for software also, we are dependent on many other countries, so that for auto software also we can start something. We can incentivize the production of those things in India, so that it can be improved. The other thing is we can spend money on finding the indigenous resources to reduce dependency on rest of the world, uh, because there are various fuels, which are fuels and batteries for which we are depending on, we are importing and we are dependent on the other world. There are various indigenous fuels which can be, on which the investment can be done, like for example hydrogen fuel or these kind of things. So the technology needs to be developed so that these things can be available indigenously. And there are critical minerals and strengthening of local supply chain to reduce our vulnerability on the global disruption. So mainly the incentivizing the domestic manufacturing is something which is important. And as Mr. Jha also talk about high logistic and high logistic cost, that is something which is also an important area where we have to see that how we have to uh, allocate. We are, government is, I'm not complaining that it is not done, infrastructure is not developed, but I think it should continue, and allocation on the infrastructure facilities should be done for reducing that freight cost. So these are the things which need to be done. And as I touched point that there are various softwares which we are importing in India from outside countries. We already have so many IT tech giants. So those kind of investment in those kind of IT parks, database centers should be done, so that these kind of things can be done in India itself. So
Yeah,
these are
I
the
think
things. Yeah.
yes. No, I think extremely relevant points, Nehaji. Thanks for sharing that. I hope the people, the stakeholders, listen to these points and follow. So, Mr. Nanda, I'll back to you. I have started asking questions to the audience, those who are watching the show, and I also request you to post questions. So, Mr. Nanda, this question is SME and MSME. In fact, I had prepared a question, and people are also asking about what government should do for SMEs and MSMEs to strengthen. But apart from that, if you could add, if you look at the small and mid-sized MSMEs, firms, they're struggling with the cost of compliance, rapid technology shifts, and artificial intelligence also. From IC's perspective, what specific the budget 2026 interventions are needed to help these small MSMEs?
Mr. Amol, when I answer on the perspective of ICA and audits, so we are very keen that profession has transitioned to technology-driven audits without excluding smaller practitioners. We at the institute level are working out softwares and technology tools for members to do audit through technology. But when it comes to income tax, I would specifically quote section 276(2) provides that the central government may notify income computation and disclosure standards to be followed by any class of assessee or in respect of any class of income. Therefore, if we speak about accounting profits and taxable profit arising from the application of ICDS, that will lead to disputes and litigations. So, what I suggest that we have to consider the consideration of profits derived on the basis of accounts prepared in compilation with the accounting standards issued by ICF for tax purposes will help mitigate litigation and also serve the objective of simplification of tax laws. When you speak about automated audits, the bringing out or inference of profit has to be made, and how that can be used by a department solely relying upon it will make a difference. As far as technology in audits is there, we as an institute subscribe to it. We are very keen to do it. But coming to income tax, you have to see the profits as coming and the taxability effect that has to be synchronized. This is my view.
Okay, and you think that by doing this, we will have boost to the SMEs, MSMEs, or the smaller
Yes,
businesses?
very, sir, the compliances will lessen. What profit comes, you have to pay tax on that. Separate profits for income tax, separate profits, book profits, they will always have a different view. So in ease of doing business, the profits derived on the basis of accounts prepared by compliance with the accounting standards which are issued by ICI for tax purposes. That should be, and that will mitigate litigation. No litigation shall happen. And more importantly, it will serve the objective of simplification of taxes, which is desirable in the budget to come.
One quick question, sir, because I understand that you also have a limited time here before you go. On the faceless assessment, Mr. Nanda, I think the government has been talking about. Has it benefited the industry?
Very much. It is a very welcome step. Rather, the faceless assessment scheme is a landmark remark. It is a landmark reform in the field of tax administration, which aims at enhancing transparency, reducing taxpayer interface, and ensuring accountability. However, I would like to tell you that communication under the faceless accounting system needs to be accompanied by clear, concise instructions which a layman can understand. And there should be a reasonable time frame for compliance. Certain people are senior citizens or who are not much tech savvy. They need reasonable time for compliance. And more importantly, a dedicated technical support team be established to resolve any issue that arise during the submission process real time. And more importantly, a dispute resolution mechanism should be introduced to handle grievances related to procedural failures under faceless assessment. That is again a point of contention which needs to be taken care of.
Sure, Mr. Nanda. Neerajji, let me come back to you and specifically take your views on the reskilling part. While job creation is one important part when we discussed in the first thought some time back, the biggest question every CFO, every CEO, and top leaders have is how to reskill their employees and how to get a talent from. How can we actually do a matchmaker here, because we have large number of students jobless today and doing even small jobs, even digital influencers and everything. But on the other side, the industry is actually crying that they are unable to hire people, and in fact the top CEOs of blue chip companies have said that I am unable to hire or recruit a right talent. How can we do a matching here?
So Amol, I actually wanted to double click and maybe follow up on the point that Nandaji made. If you allow me, I just wanted to just extend that thought and I'll then come to your question.
Sure.
On the assessment, faceless assessment and litigation part, this is something that I really wanted to represent on this forum because manpower companies, the kind of margin profile and the cash flow profile that this industry follows, it is very, very important that any compliance addition or any assessment addition, it can throw our numbers out of the whack. So, consistency around assessment, there is one thought that we wanted to share in this panel is like GAR and like GST, is there a possibility where the government can introduce a concept of tax panel? The reason I'm saying is, one of the largest deduction that this industry it takes is the Section 80 JJAA, which is the deduction around, and this is connected to your point, the deduction around adding new jobs in employment. It has been very inconsistently followed across states. So it's a very common issue that we are all facing in industry where the whole definition of employer-employee relationship has been challenged. I think what this tax panel will do is make sure that any assessment decision or addition that a tax officer does, if it is impacting the whole industry like GAR or like GST, it will allow this panel to review and approve it first so that the industry does not get impacted at large. In our case, as I said, even though there is a positive ITAT decision in the industry's favor, still we are struggling to basically get this deduction through. So on the ease of business, on assessment, I thought it is imperative for me to bring this point because at least for the companies like us who are contributing significantly on the employment generation, if this deduction still remains litigative, it will be very difficult for us to support and bring this entire workforce into the formal fold. I'll come to your question now.
Okay.
As I said on the previous question, it is something that has to be addressed at the skilling level. So more formal curriculum introduction at the university level. I think we all have to understand, and I have Nanda sir on the call. I'm also a chartered accountant. The institute has really evolved in terms of their curriculum, understanding what is the industry demand and industry needs, and how their students need to upskill themselves to serve the industry in a meaningful way. I think this has to be implemented at a country level where, Ministry of Labor and some the other ministries who have actually worked together, they have to then find out in the evolving era of today, what are the upcoming skill requirements for our youth. And you talked about digital. Everything is going to get translated into digital. So it is important that we understand the job readiness at that level. And as I said in the previous comment, the government should focus this year, while they have already introduced the new Income Tax Act, which is going to be effective April 25, April 26. There is new labor code already been implemented. GST reforms have already been addressed. So my sense is I'm not expecting a big bang change in the income tax, the upcoming budget. I think this is the year where government can really focus on employment generation and what they need to address in the overall ecosystem. One of the areas that we need to address is at the skilling level. So all those ministries need to understand how they need to fine-tune their internships, their programs. I mean, one of the other example I'll give you, Amol, it's ETJJAA section was introduced almost a decade back. And the qualifying requirement for industry is the remuneration level is 25,000. That is nowhere close to the today's the requirement of today's employment. And one common I would say disparity is when you have ELI as a scheme. ELI qualifying salary is 1 lakh rupees. So what easily government can think about is at least put both the policies in match. So one of the other recommendations that I have is the government should now think about revising the minimum wage qualification for ETJJA and bring it in parity with other schemes that they have now floated like ELI. I think addressing the skilling at the university level and at the skill development level, addressing the pain points of the industry on the qualifying deductions like ETJJA at the company level, and making sure that some of these policies which are different in time, making coherent qualifying criteria in all these policies. We have to work in all these different sectors, and I think that will jointly make sure that more and more workforce is upskilled at the ground level and they are job ready at the next level. And then there are companies like us who can then bring them onto the formal employment platform. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I think that was a detailed one. In fact, you added a lot of points to that, Neeraj. In fact, everyone thinks that employment has become an integral part, and that should be the theme. Like last year, we had agriculture, investments, MSMEs, and exports were the themes. I think this year, employment should be, at the priority, because that's where India lacks today. Noted your points, Neeraj. Let me move to the, Sridharanji. Sridharanji, always there is a question about the jurisdiction. In fact, when NAFRA was not there, sometimes the ICA would say, "Oh, this is not my jurisdiction," when there would certain issues come. So it's all about the interpretation of the issues, and still there are a lot of issues between the interpretation. So my question to you is uncertainty, whether in rules or interpretation of or enforcement, often discourages the investment. And as we are moving towards maybe a third largest economy, we are looking for the highest investments. What changes should budget 2026 make to bring more consistency, transparency, and trust into the system if we have to attract foreign investment, specifically FDI or something like that, Sridharanji?
Yeah, you have raised a very important issue, namely of the level of clarity that our existing systems provide as far as the activities of various economic entities is concerned. This perhaps is not something which is entirely, let us say, within the scope of the budget, since this would also involve a substantial amount of thinking about judicial reform. part of the problem relating to uncertainty in the interpretation of laws is also due to the length of time that cases have to go through before they finally attain certainty. And in fact, recently we have seen this phenomenon of there being no certainty even after a case, for example, reaches the Supreme Court. And that, I think, is somewhat of a not a very desirable situation. And some serious thinking amongst the legal fraternity is perhaps required to ensure that we don't have recurring instances of such uncertainty. Having said that, it must also be said that a lot more thought needs to be given at the legislative drafting stage itself. And very often, a lot of legislative regulatory uncertainty is caused by fairly, a lack of clear-headedness in drafting of laws. But that's a very large issue, and I'm quite sure there are various people who are working on that. Just like to flag two more issues before I complete. First thing is about the role of the state governments, both in respect of ease of doing business as well as in stepping up the pace of infrastructure creation. Today, the role of state governments is as important, if not more important, than that of the union government. And there has to be a regular system, institutional mechanism for ensuring that glitches between the union and states do not delay any projects. I believe the government has set up a committee under the cabinet secretary, probably a standing committee, to look into issues relating to states and see that infrastructure projects are all speeded up. Of course, we have the example of the PM Gati reviews, which seem to have delivered very enormous results on the ground. Second point, I think, which needs to be kept in mind, that in the process of ensuring that we streamline regulations to ensure ease of doing business, we do not end up adding to the list of regulations in place. In fact, I remember some years ago when single window agencies were very much the fashion. Very often the single window agencies happened to result in one more extra window. So you had to go through all the existing windows and ultimately go back to the single window agency as one extra window. That should not happen. And the practice sometimes I have seen in recent times of trying to elaborate on standards and procedures which are already very clear in the form of guidelines and toolkits and so on, also ends up giving rise to the same kind of, let us say, uncertainty and discrepancy between two different views, which Mr. Nanda talked about. So there has to be a lot of care taken to ensure that the principle of parsimony, as they say in mathematical proof, that is, you reduce the number of instructions and guidelines to the absolute minimum required to achieve a particular objective, is very seriously followed, and everything else is ruthlessly removed. I think that is the way we need to go about it.
Okay, I think meaningful thoughts there. Mr. Jha, I think you accompanied Mr. Goel, and you have been representing industry, being a CFO also. If you look at the data points, Indian firms are being maybe governed by more than 1,500 acts and rules, more than 69,000 compliances, and they almost do 6,000 filings. That's and I'm sure if you will have perhaps more numbers here. If we are planning and heading towards a Vikasit Bharat and having a goal, how do you think that the Indian companies, what do you think that the budget should do specifically for Indian companies to become competent at the global level?
So I would, I mean, there are two veterans at least here sitting on the conference, Mr. Nanda and my and friend from the so they are the regulators. So when we discuss these things, from the government, and I have personally given practical example that which questions the authority of the various departments within the government of India. like there is a customs, there are now there is a new authority which is created, um, which has the representation from all the revenue department. So we call it DRI, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, and then Ministry of Commerce. So through a case studies, we have given a lot of references to the minister and said that you don't know tomorrow which authority with what kind of background they will come up, and they will start questioning and will take full day, perhaps 3 4 days, to discuss only the legality of the questions and authority on the law. I mean, Nandaji is in better position to communicate what kind of compliances government is going to give up. But for me, I am very sure that there are sincere efforts are being made, but I don't expect a lot of changes in that. Uh,
Okay.
because the priorities are changed for the government, even this government, and the focus is now shifted to uh, being more populist, and
Hmm.
when you become more populist, then policy decisions improvements takes backseat. So I am not very hopeful on that, but we have given the representation from the industry side.
No, certainly, and as you know, we are aiming to become the more developed country, third largest economy. I think we should aim to have companies of a scale of NVIDIA. At least I know it will not happen overnight, but at least if we plan now, perhaps a decade, 2 decades later, we'll have some companies like that. My worry is we're not even perhaps planning or
No,
thinking like that.
I can tell you one practical. So we were in Belgium with Mr. Goel again, because I have visited with him at so many places. So on the dinner, it was a private conversation, and I have said, Piyush ji, फर्स्ट टर्म में आपने बहुत अच्छा किया, सेकंड टर्म में भी बहुत अच्छा किया, थर्ड टर्म में कुछ ऐसा लग रहा है कि बहुत कुछ हो नहीं पा रहा है करके. तो उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं, कई चीजें आपको तब तक पता नहीं चलती जब तक हो नहीं जाता.
Hmm.
तो ऐसा नहीं है, मतलब गवर्नमेंट में ब्यूरोक्रेसी में नंदा जी विल बी पार्टी टू इट, एंड श्रीधरन सर विल आल्सो बी पार्टी टू इट. दे आर वर्किंग and they are sincerely working, but uh, a lot of things on the platter. I mean, I can tell you, these are the season where Tamil Nadu and West Bengal will be in picture. So people, so the government are now focused on that. No, then who take care of this litigations and all that?
Yeah, certainly we'll take some views from Nanda also, Mr. Nanda. But before that, Snehaji, I think you have a limited time now. But quickly before I let you go, just one quick question. I think we discussed in details. You highlighted a couple of things. What is it that maybe one or two things that government should not miss in FY 2026 when the finance minister will present the budget in the parliament on the 1st of February? What is that one or two things that you want to see in that Bahir Khata or the iPad that she's going to read budget from?
One thing which I feel that which can easily be done is because if we talk about the rationalization of the tax things, because we are already in India, we already have GST framework and a unified tax reporting system already exists. All the organization are already filing such returns, and they are, and Indian income tax authorities can take the data from there about track the transaction. Means they already have a software in which all the organizations are there and they are present. So what I think is the requirement to issue TDS and TCS certificates should be removed. That is because that is creating lots of administrative pressure on the organization. I think this is the basic thing. And the softwares are available pan India by which the tracking can be done, and these things can be removed. So that is the first thing which is there on my wish list. And second thing is, actually I am a woman, so that is something for the growth of the more female participation in the boardroom. There are few things which I feel should be done. Of course, see, the thing is related to the related to the auto industry, I have already informed about my wish list. So this is something which should be done. Other than that, is mandatory gender reporting with the integration of ESG reporting. Means
Okay.
there should be incentivizing of more inclusion of the female participation in the boardrooms and other areas. So that is something which can be done. So these are the things which I think which can be done quickly.
Yeah, certainly very extremely meaningful thoughts. Snehaji, I think we have last 5 minutes. I will take one question to each one of you, starting with Mr. Nanda. I think I had a couple of questions from the audience, but I think over the course of conversation, we have already taken these questions about taxation, about SME, so we can repeat that. So Mr. Nanda, quickly, maybe specifically on the litigation part, if which Mr. Jha was also trying to do, is there anything that the government should do specifically so that the Indian companies can be at a global level and far more better ease of doing business, single window clearance, something like that?
There are there are certain issues which we need to understand. See,
Mm-hmm.
there are certain companies which are opting for Section 115BA, Section 115B AA, and Section 115AB. So they have to file form number 10 1B, 10 1C, and 10 1D respectively. So what I suggest, that ITR 5 and 6 require information as to the date of exercise of option along with acknowledgement number and date of filing. This is an additional compliance burden which can be avoided. And my suggestion is that the companies and cooperative societies can be allowed to exercise the option for the special tax regime in the return of income itself. Second, the details which are reported in tax audit report, they are not required again in schedules in ITR, and figures from computation of business income should be auto-populated from Form 3D itself. There should be no duplication in return of income. Once we speak of ease of doing business, information should come, but only once. You again auto-populate that. So my suggestion is that the details in tax audit report, that is Form 3CD, should not be once again required in ITR, which is a big task. Part A 01 and Part A QD should accordingly be removed. The corresponding figures required for computation of income charge under the head profit and gains of business and profession in Schedule BP and figures required in other schedules can be auto-populated equitably from Form 3CD itself. So simplification of income tax returns and forms, reintroduction of one-page SARL, not for corporates but normal people, reduction in number of schedules in the return forms. For example, requirements and details of assets and liabilities should not be required, and make things simple for companies and cooperative sections, societies opting for special tax regime under Section 200, 201, 3 and 4 of the Income Tax Act 2025. So in my opinion, the best part would be to give a simple format on which reporting can be made. Information should be taken once, not be taken time and again, so that it creates arithmetical issues, it creates certain technical issues while feeding, and then again, consistency in the reports would call for a scrutiny or call for more information from the corporates.
Understood. Understood. So meaning there is a variety of information.
Technical, it may be a bit technical, Mr. Amol, but to
Yes.
summarize, no
Yes.
duplication. These simple forms, even for corporates, so that they will effectively report what they have done. They are subject to statutory audits. They are subject to reviews. So again, writing that again, I feel puts them at a discomfort.
Absolutely. So, because I just have a very limited time, maybe a few seconds to each one of you, and this question is specifically about the people at large. I remember a statement in the budget that the finance minister said last year was a country is not just for its soil, but a country is its people. When we look at people at large, we discuss the ease of doing business, we discuss what companies, CFOs, and India at a large have. But when it comes to people, because ultimately we all are people, Sridharan sir said at ease of living business. What is it that the budget should have for the people at large? Neeraj ji, let me start with you.
I would say, I think we have already talked more about employment, so I will not touch upon that. Maybe I'll just continue what is impacting people at large, which is like companies at large. So, one is obviously I talked about tax panel. That should basically bring uniformity in the assessment decisions. One of the other thing that government should also look at is to bring out clarifications on matters which are impacting industry at large, and that will also help bringing down the litigations at the industry at large. Point number two. Point number three, Snehaji talked about TDS. I would say the government should now look at, like GST, rationalizing. We don't need 10 different TDS rates. Maybe relook at the current TDS regime and try and simplify and maybe bring maybe maximum 2 or 3 TDS rates. That will really help public at large, including all of us, to comply with those TDS requirements, including filing returns and then getting into those assessments. And last on my list is, again, to the topic that Snehaji talked about. For the social inclusion and gender, I would say, there is almost a 50 million labor workforce. While the government did touch upon the gig workers as part of their new labor code reforms, there is still a 50 million plus labor, which is our domestic labor, which works in all our houses. As Quest, we are looking at how we can help that section of the society through some technology. But from the government side of it, if they can bring in some additional tax deduction to an individual who is employing that labor at home, that will really help society at large. I think that will really bring a very inclusive
Sure,
development
Neeraj.
at country level.
Yeah. Mr. Sridharan.
The common man's wish list from the government, I think, is absolutely endless. But if I were to specify one particular item that I would like this budget to address, and this is something I think that can be addressed easily, it is to have a single, comprehensive, simplified KYC that doesn't result in harassment of ordinary citizens. I think that is a very important change that can be very easily brought about. It is not something which is not possible to do or very difficult. The second thing I would like the government to keep in mind is that whatever is announced, whatever is proposed, the devil is always in the detail. So somebody has to work through the consequences in detail of every change, of every new proposal that is made, in order to ensure that it is as foolproof as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Jha.
So my ways, I have spent a good amount of time in US, and see, when you lose the employment after a certain period, government pays take care of you and your health as well. In India, the lot of non-compliances is only because the people like me, if I lose suddenly my job, there won't be anybody who can take care of me. Government won't come into picture and say, "Nee, you have given me so many tax. Let me help you back." So the 90% of non-compliances, I think all the panelists are smiling, will agree that if the government gives the kind of some confirmation that after a, say, 24 months, or like in entire Europe, if you have work about 24 months, 36 months, or 40 months, you will get a kind of assurance from the government that till the time you are re-employment, government will take care. Right. So in India, it is not only give me money, right? I pay in the highest tax bracket, but then if I lose job today, I am my own, right? Nobody will come and ask me, relatives, government, tax department, nobody will ask me, boss, how are you, sir? So if government can take care of that part, no, I think from 7-8% taxpayer in India will become 50% in no time.
Yes. No, I think that was the most relative point while we are catering to a business and we speak about business finance journalism and cater to the CFOs and the business community. But I think people at large are facing this issue. And I put it this way, that if you get a job as a young, boy of the country, as soon as you complete 18, 20 years and you get your first job, before you get your money in your hand, you get TDS has been deducted, by the government.
Correct.
So noted your
So
points.
you end up paying more than 50% of your money income as a tax, if you include everything together.
exactly. Include yes, direct and indirect. If you include that, in fact, it's more than
Yeah.
50%. Noted your points. Thank you so much, Snehaji and the gentleman here on the show for sharing those remarkable thoughts. I'm so sure, the government of India is listening to this particular show, and perhaps they will make some notes for sure, and perhaps we will see a couple of recommendations that you have given will be in the budget itself. Thank you so much for your contribution to this particular show and sharing time with ETBFSI and ETCFO. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.